Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevett, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason, and welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We are excited today, aren't we, Scott?
Heck yeah, we're going all the way down under for this guest. Are you guys ready?
That's right. We're going to Melbourne. So today we have the great Conny Wladkowski. Conny, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great, great.
Welcome,
I
welcome.
butchered your name, but we're so glad you're here.
Well, I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Nice, nice. So shall we get started? Let's get the first question. Conny, who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? So I'm an Austrian living in Australia, which confuses everyone straight away. I've got two little kids, two little girls, and I work as a hypnotherapist in Australia, and I specialize in anxiety and in trauma relief. And when I say trauma relief, I specialize in healing from trauma without regression. So my clients can tell me as much or as little as they want about the traumatic event, and I help them. And this is what I present all over the world about, is about healing from trauma without regression.
Nice, nice. And you have two little girls. How old are they?
One is 2 and the other one is 9.
Oh, well, that can keep your hands full, can it?
Definitely. It's definitely a juggling act.
So let's talk about this, that you're working with the trauma relief without the regression. What's that all about?
Look, I've experienced trauma myself, and I went through the traditional approach, and I was, told to talk about the trauma over and over again. And at times I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I felt hopeless. I felt like I was just stuck in that same loop. So I decided, all right, let's find a better and easier way to overcome trauma, because I never was told that there is another way of doing it. So I went and I studied about the neuroscience of the brain. I started, unpacking processes that I learned to find out, okay, what are the steps underneath those processes? And what I talk a lot about, or what I use, is the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, and creating processes, that have the therapeutic memory reconsolidation underneath it, which really gives you the opportunity to heal from trauma without even knowing what the initial sensitizing event was, or without having to talk about it.
So that's a pretty big word, the therapeutic memory consolidation. What is that all about?
So the funny thing is, a lot of hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners, EFT tapping, they're already doing it. Yeah, a lot of the steps have those 4 steps from the therapeutic memory reconsolidation underneath it, but we're often not aware of it. And I used to do it subconsciously, whether I learned it or because I intuitively did it. But when I understood the steps underneath it, and you can then really do it with intention, you can create those amazing results for your clients. So at the end, there's 4 steps underneath it. It's accessing that neural network of the problem. But the great thing is, let's say if a client comes and let's say they got bitten by a dog as a child. Now they have a fear of dogs, and every time they see a dog, they start getting a panic attack. So you can access that neural network of the problem by saying, okay, well, when was the last time you felt like that? So then they don't have to go back to the childhood when they got bitten. They can just go back to a subsequent event that felt like that. And once we light up that neural network of the problem, what we need to put in something called a prediction error in the brain, because our brain predicts what happens next based on past experiences. So the brain would predict, okay, every time the client sees a dog, they're going to have a panic attack, they're going to freak out. Now, if that's not happening anymore, the brain is suddenly getting that prediction error. And that's when you can unlock the protein stasis and you can create and change that neural pathway. And that's what I use with my clients. And that's what I teach all over the world at conferences. Really how you don't have to learn anything new. You can use your approaches, you can use your techniques, just be mindful of the steps underneath it, and you can create that from the moment the client walks in the session.
Nice, nice. So it's 4 simple steps and we can get it done. Is it very similar to the NLP?
Yes, and as I said, a lot of NLP practices have those steps underneath it. But the thing is, if you really do it with intention, and if you really know what you're doing, you can just create that layer and can really make sure that this is actually happening. And it really, because with the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, I'm not changing the memory, but I'm changing the emotional track of that neural network. And when you change the emotional track, it's changed. There's no going back anymore. It's not like you're creating a new habit, you're changing the old habit. And that really creates that long-lasting success with your clients. And what I do with my clients, I always back up everything we do with an action. So my clients have to do an action after the session. We work it out together what it is. I don't tell them what they have to do, but we'll talk about it. And it's something that kind of proves to them that something has already changed. So then the brain also has that reference. Hey, wow, it's not just all talk. Things are actually getting better and things are already changing for me.
Almost like an anchor.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's an anchor, and it also is the final, it's almost like the final step of the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, because once we create that prediction error, we then have to loop it in a couple of times. We have to loop that in, so those neural networks start rewiring. And if we then have a solid action that proves to them, like let's say one of my clients had a fear of going to a supermarket. So after the session, I think it was session 1 or 2, he's like, okay, I'll go around 7 o'clock to like a department store, because in Australia everything shuts at that time. So he's like, okay, it's not going to be too busy, it's not too late. So it was a little bit pushing him out of his comfort zone, but it gave him the confidence. All right, well, I did that, so maybe tomorrow I can go to the supermarket. And then the next time it was, now I'm going at a busy time. And that's how you create those tangible results for your clients.
So you're working on actions then, rather than changing a belief system.
Well, I change your belief system, but then I want to back it up with an action.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So
Because-
let me ask you, Connie. So at what time did you all of a sudden have this thing like, wow, I can help people. This is going to work. That aha moment. How did that come about?
Well, to be honest, when I was 15, I did a Reiki course. So like that was my start of wanting to kind of help people, because at that time my mom got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I was so, worried, and I kind of wanted to somehow help her. So I did a Reiki training, and then I went from Reiki to kinesiology, and I did a crystal healing, and I did that all my life. But I never worked, I never saw clients. I helped friends, I helped family, I helped myself. And then what happened was I started suffering from severe panic attacks and anxiety, had that for many years, went through the traditional approach and did all these alternative things as well, but nothing really, I guess, gave me that long-term relief that I needed. And at that time, my firstborn was a year old, and I would wake up every night having a panic attack, like to the point where in the morning I couldn't even mother her. I was exhausted, I was scared to go to sleep. And that's when I tried hypnotherapy. Almost like, the typical story, it's my last resort story, but it was like that. And yeah, within weeks, the anxiety got less. Within months, I had no more panic attacks. And I think that was that one thing where I'm like, wow, that's the one thing I'm convinced, or because it's helped me, that's awesome. That I really believe in that. So I was like, okay, I'll start learning about hypnotherapy. But again, was a bit too scared to really go from my full-time job to becoming a hypnotherapist. I was learning it. I maybe saw a couple of clients, but didn't really jump full-time into it. And then my dad passed away out of the blue. And that was kind of a moment where I was like, wow, no one expected my dad to die like that. And it was kind of this moment for me where I was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm really wasting time here. Why not just go for it and do it? And yeah, that's what I did then. And look, one of the key things I think for me was that at that time, yeah, I did overcome anxiety, but I still had that unresolved trauma that was weighing me down. I had no confidence. I wouldn't even have been able to walk into a room and say hello to people. Like that's how little my self-belief and my confidence was. So through my dad passing away, I realized, I'm wasting so much time in my life with not being who I am, with not growing and not healing. So I decided to heal myself and become a hypnotherapist. And along that way is when I said, all right, what is a easier or better or maybe a more gentler way to overcome trauma? And I did that along my own healing journey. What I've learned, what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, what I felt like was lacking. And I've put that all together in how I'm working today with my clients.
Yeah, so you've grown from not being able to say hello when you've walked into a room with people in it to speaking in front of crowds all over the world. So how does that feel now?
Yeah, it feels amazing. And that was I think that the fear of public speaking was my final, I guess, piece in the puzzle. At that time I already, worked with clients and did all that, but I did have that massive fear of public speaking. So, but I have this mentality that I'm like, I told you about my clients doing action. So I get my clients to push themselves out of their comfort zone. So who am I to sit here and say, oh, I'm not going to push myself out of my comfort zone? So that was a big motivator to really be like, okay, well, I practice what I preach. So I applied for HypnoThoughts. That was my first conference. And yeah, I was like, I apply. I'm not even gonna, I just apply and see what happens. And I got chosen and then I flew there and I was scared, to be honest. But it was an amazing experience. And after that, yeah, I actually realized I don't know what the fear of public speaking was. Like, my first experience was good. I had good feedback, and from then on, it's just got grown. And yeah, at the last conference in Australia, I won 2 awards for the best speaker and most influential hypnotherapist award. And yeah, obviously, I thought I didn't have a gift or a talent for public speaking, but obviously, that was just one of the beliefs I had.
Nice. So now let me ask you, so you got this going on and you have the two little kids. So do you ever practice any of this on your little kids or at home?
Well, my 9-year-old, she practices on me. She sometimes says, "Mom, take a deep breath." She sometimes hears me when I say things like that. But yeah, the 9-year-old one is a little bit more interested. And the other day she came home from school and she was really upset about something. And then I had a conversation and then she's like, "Now I understand how you make your clients feel better. You always make me feel better." And I'm like, "Oh, that's
Oh,
Nice.
that's cool.
Well,
yeah,
that might make you feel better as well.
100%. There's nothing worse than seeing your 9-year-old cry."
Well, I
Mm.
think you would have more trauma than a 1-year-old when they cry.
Oh, the 2-year-old, yeah, she cries over everything at the moment.
So let's ask. So your first thing was at Hypnothoughts, and you've been through all this. You've done the Reiki. You've been through a lot of different modalities. Obviously, it seems like hypnosis is your go-to. But the big question is who are your mentors?
Who are my mentors? Well, I would say I've learned from a lot of different people, because I love that. But I would say probably the people that shaped me the most in my hypnotherapy would be the first one was Michael DeShalit. I did a lot of one-on-one mentoring with him, and he really taught me everything about hypnosis in general. Like he taught me how to write my own script. And I know these days you can have ChatGPT, but learning how to write a script, understanding why certain pieces are in there and how was so important for me to actually then create my own process. And then another mentor of mine is Dan Candell. I did a lot about anxiety relief with him and Michael and Dan are good friends of mine now. So there are still mentors, people that I look up to, but they've become good friends and I hang out with them at the conferences. And then my final mentor, which is a little bit sad, Dr. Lisa Halpin, she just passed away like a month ago. And yeah, she was also my mentor for the last couple of years, and I had weekly sessions with her, and she taught me a lot about how to write a book, how to prepare for presentations. So it was a lot on that hypnotherapy business side of things. While Michael and Dan were actually people that also played a really big part on my own healing journey and overcoming trauma.
So let's talk about that book,
Mm-hmm.
How to Write a
It's
Book.
here.
There you go. Talk to us. Tell us a little bit about it. Shine through trauma. What's that?
So this book is about the S.H.I.N.E trauma release process. So that's the process that I've created, which is a 5-step process, and each letter is an important step in healing from trauma without regression. And this book is actually about a particular client that I helped. That I think it was about 3 years ago. She had already been through the traditional approach, I think, for about 5 years, had a couple of suicide attempts, was in a really bad place. And I started working with her. And yeah, it's about her story, how she went from severe agoraphobia, not wanting to live anymore, to now thriving and loving life. And I explain in that book the steps that I've taken her through. So this book is really for any hypnotherapist that is interested, how to work without regression. But then it's also from her point of view. So it's a bit of a mix of how she felt going through the process. So it's also for the person that might have experienced trauma and feels like they've tried everything, feel hopeless. Because what we've put in there is I've kept all the message conversations that I've gotten from her, her feedback after each session, and we've put that in there. And she was on board with the book, obviously. And then there's a final interview where she tells about how she feels now and what she's doing now. So yeah, it's a collaboration about her story and how I've worked with her.
So is she like part of the author then for you then too?
Well, she's written the 2 chapters. So one is her thoughts about the process, and one is where she is now 3 years later.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Scott, do you have any questions you want to throw out here?
Sure. So you've got the book Shine Through Trauma, and you said that the Shine stands for 5 things. Would you tell us a little more about that?
Of course. So letter S is the first session. It's all about creating a safe space for the client, because most people that have experienced trauma don't feel safe. So that's really the groundwork that I'm doing with the client. And we all know it's about creating rapport, it's creating trust. It's really getting the client to feel comfortable and safe to work with me. But I'm putting the emphasis on it's not that the client has to tell me about the trauma. It's just for them to be who they are, where they are, and I meet them where they are right now and really start giving them that feeling that they're being understood. Because I do feel like, and when I went through trauma and anxiety, I felt like nobody was understanding me. It was hard. I often felt like, okay, these people, I'm just telling them my story and they got no idea what I was going through. So I am quite vulnerable and open with my clients, that they know, hey, I know how it feels like when you're sitting in the middle of the night having a panic attack, feeling like you're dying or you're having a heart attack. And I know what were the steps that helped me. So that's about, the first session. But again, I do hypnosis and I put in a bit of the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, and we start working with the effects of the trauma, because a client doesn't come and say, hey, heal me from trauma. They usually say, I'm suffering from anxiety, I have depression, or whatever it is. So usually it is anyway the effects that we clear up, because that's what they come and see us for. So I usually start with the first thing, and that is quite often anxiety. That's usually the first thing that holds them back. And then the second letter is the letter H, and that's all about healing. So that's when we go into that healing of that traumatized part. So that's where a little bit of parts work comes into play. Now, it could be healing of the inner child because it was childhood trauma, but it could be also a trauma that I experienced in adult life. So I'm not, it doesn't have to be childhood trauma. And then the next letter is the letter I, which is inspire forgiveness, where we do a forgiveness process. And that could be forgiving the specific people, but this is not about letting anyone know we've forgiven them. It's about the person themselves. Sometimes inspiring forgiveness just means letting go, because not everybody wants to forgive, and I'm not going to make anyone forgive, So we might reframe it to, hey, letting it go, or we might even forgive the event and just let those people out of the game completely, because a lot of people have been abused or raped that come to see me. So it is about finding really what works for them and what are they open to do. And then the letter N is for negative beliefs. So that's where we're clearing up those beliefs that you're usually the results out of the trauma. And then the final letter, this is my favorite one. It's the letter E, it's empowerment. And that really carries through each and every single session. So I'm all about empowering my clients. So I teach my clients rapid reshape tools so that they can stop a panic attack in an instant. So they can stop when they're feeling anxious. So they can stop their negative thought pattern. Because I want them, the moment they leave the first session, to be equipped with something they can do straight away. Because for me, it is really about giving the client the responsibility that they are responsible for their healing. Yeah, I can give them the tools and I can take them through hypnosis, but they need to use it and apply it. So I teach them tools, each session a couple of different ones. They're all very simple, so that at the end they try them all out and they find what works best for them. Because we know we have visual people, we have auditory people, we have kinesthetic people. Some people have a fear of driving. Well, I'm not going to get them to do something with two hands when they need to drive. So it's all about really giving them a few different options. Because that was one of the biggest things for me, even when I was going through the anxiety. After each session, I felt like, yeah, I got this, and I'm better now. And then I had a panic attack and I didn't know what to do. And when it comes to panic attacks, I think it goes way beyond, or just try to relax and take a deep breath. That quite often doesn't cut it. So it's about really teaching clients tools, and when they leave my sessions, they feel so hopeful and empowered. And I get messages from them all the time. Hey, I've used the tool. It's worked. I'm already feeling better. Because for me, it's all about creating that long-lasting change in the brain. And I'm all about the neuroscience of the brain again. It's about breaking down that old habitual behavior in the brain, breaking it down and creating a new one. And that goes, for me, through repetition and reinforcement, which those tools give them the opportunity to do that.
So is your next book going to be on case studies of success, or what's your next book going to be about?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, or going into really the repetition and reinforcement, which I feel like I know, as a hypnotherapist, I know we can make change in an instant. I get that. But I do think sometimes the repetition and reinforcement factor is not being used as much as it could be. And I think I'm going to write more about that, and really empowering the client, which is also my talk at HypnoThoughts going to be this year. More into detail about that.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice. So what's the more detail about this? You're going to talk about empowering your client this year? Is that the inside scoop?
A little bit. Well, I know that I already posted that. And it's about, I think what I'm also big about is I have a hybrid program for my clients. So they have the one-on-one sessions with me, and then they have login details to like an online portal where each week they have certain resources I give them. So I give them a hypnosis recording to listen to. The tools that I teach them in the session are pre-recorded in there, so they don't have to remember everything I teach them. And then there's a couple of videos about education in there, which I can give it to them, and I hope they use it. And there's a lot of more in there that I can do in a session, because otherwise I could work with them for like 20 sessions. So I try to put as much in there. And I just had a client yesterday say to me, oh, one of the videos, I didn't think when I read the title it applied to me, but when you explained it, that was like a big aha moment. And sometimes little things like that are those aha moments for our clients.
That's a great way to retain clients as well. Have them start doing these projects, and then they get used to doing that. And then, like you, excuse me, like you said, if they forget during the session or when they leave the session, you don't just give them a piece of paper to take home. They actually have that website that they can go to and clock their progress, and you can monitor it as well. That's awesome.
That's another thing. I can see if they log on, so I know if they're doing the work as well. And the online program is lifetime access. So they can go and log in anytime, because at the end of the day, most of the things that people want to overcome are habitual behaviors in the brain, whether they're beliefs, whether they're habits, whether they're triggers. So I really teach them, with those same tools, you can overcome the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Of course, if it's something deeper, you can contact me or someone else. But a lot of the things they're going to be able to solve themselves. And look, the tools that I'm teaching them, when I think about 8 years ago when I had daily panic attacks, I used those same tools when I went to Las Vegas and I presented for the first time. So those tools, I still apply them on myself, because I'm still constantly growing and realizing, there's another belief coming up, or there's another trigger coming up.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so let me ask you, this is a big one. How do our viewers get a hold of you?
Well, you can contact me on my email address, which is Conny, CONNY .hypnosis@gmail.com, or besthypnotherapymelbourne.com.au is my website.
You have to say that. That was too fast. We want to put it
Sorry,
up.
www.besthypnotherapymelbourne.com.au.
Melbourne. Got you. Got you. Wonderful, wonderful. So that's great. Scott, do you have another question for her?
Oh, I'm just laughing, you guys, because that went by so fast. It was I thought it was just me. Wow, she went strictly European on us real quick there.
Oh, sorry, was that too straight?
Hey, Connie,
It was
Connie, what's your goals? Where do you plan to be here in the next 5 to 10 years? What's your goals now?
Well, I definitely want to go into teaching. Um, I am also thinking of a collaboration with someone possible. So I'm in talk with someone that I would love to do some collaboration with. I'm still a little bit limited to having two little kids and with traveling. So I've got a few conferences that ask me to speak next year. The travel from Australia to different places is always a bit far. So I'm at the moment trying to, do as much as I can, but, obviously putting my family first. But hopefully in the next few years, I can travel a bit more. I can go to more conferences. Yeah, collaborate with someone, maybe write another book. And the one thing that I'm gonna always keep doing is just seeing my clients because I love that. That's just yeah, that one-on-one work. I still love that one-on-one work that I do with my clients.
Now, speaking of one-on-one, you said when you were 15, you started doing Reiki. Do you bring a lot of that other stuff that you learned along the way into your hypnosis?
I do, and I think it's a bit of a subconscious thing as well, feeling the people, feeling the energy. I mean, I only do work online, but yeah, I definitely bring into all of that, and I think it's also a bit of a knowledge about little certain things, and I have a spiritual mentor myself, so I bring a lot of that stuff in as well about manifesting and frequency and setting yourself up for to be the best version of yourself. So stuff like that I learn. I always use it for myself, and when I see how it works, I'll teach my clients that because when they go in the online part of the program, it's not just hypnosis. I've got a bit of coaching stuff in there as well, so I've got a bit of a conscious solutions for them as well, or ideas what they can implement in their daily life as well. Whether it's gratitude or waking up in the morning and setting yourself up the first 5 minutes for a great day, or when you go to sleep, visualizing how you want the next day to go. So I put a lot of that in as well, which, I know it's not hypnosis, but I think the more you can teach your client in a way where they can really incorporate it in their everyday life, then it makes it easy for them.
Yeah, so do you have like a little plan? You said you were very spiritual, a little plan or a little ritual or something that you do before you meet with your clients?
Well, I do really have about, I would say, 5 minutes of grounding and breathing and really going back to, okay, so what was the conversations that I had with the client, not just looking at my notes, but really going in, okay, what was I feeling? What was I thinking? Um, because I feel like the key thing is really to be present with your client and sometimes I think I know what I'm gonna do with a client, and then they jump on, and then I'm like, so how's your week been? And they're like, oh, this went great and this went great, but this is what I'm struggling with. And then I'm like, all right, I'm doing something completely different now, than I thought I was gonna do. And I think that's a cool thing when you've seen so many clients, you can be flexible. Because at the beginning, you are nervous, you have a script, you're like, oh, nothing should get out of plan or unexpected. But I feel like that unexpected stuff is the fun stuff now, where you can really be creative with your clients and really, give them what they need.
Isn't that what life's all about? Unscripted?
Yes, it is. It is. And it's beautiful when you can do it. It's beautiful when you know you can do it. And I think that's one of the things that I was always the person that, and maybe that's why I love the neuroscience, is kind of understanding how you're doing certain things, because then you can just do it for any problem. You don't need to learn for each problem a specific process.
Yes.
Uh, Yeah.
Scott, do you have another question?
I just thank you so much for coming in and sharing your time with us with all the time zone changes and the young ones that you have and everything. Thank you so much for coming and seeing us and spending time.
Yes,
Thank
Connie.
you for thank you for having me. And I'm glad I didn't mess up the time zones.
You didn't mess up anything. It's just we're just grateful to be able to have you here. And that said, I got another question for you. What are your words of wisdom that you're going to give our viewers?
My words of wisdom, or that's my line with my clients, is believe in yourself. Just and that's something I still work on myself. Back then I couldn't believe that I could ever overcome panic attacks, and then the next thing was I couldn't believe I could write a book, especially in another language. I couldn't believe that I would ever be a good public speaker. And they're just all stories that we're telling ourselves. So it's really about, to the viewer, what stories are you telling yourself? And are they really true? Do you have any evidence for that's true? Because I never had an evidence that I'm not a good public speaker. I just thought that that's what I'm not good at. Or that I can't write a book. Who says that I can't write a book? So it's really about asking yourself, are those stories true? And then really starting little actions to prove yourself that those stories are not true. Because first I've actually collaborated on in 2 books. So I didn't just write a book straight away by myself. I did 2 chapters in 2 books. So it was a small step to really break free from those negative stories that you're telling yourself, because I feel like we're using our imagination every day, but we just tend to use it to a negative. So why not imagine yourself having achieved what you want to achieve?
Nice. So do you have another one that you're planning?
Another book?
You got this yes, you got this collaboration. What direction are you headed?
Look, it's about, I think it really is in the direction of teaching people and really, teaching them a way of helping clients heal from trauma without regression. And how to create a hybrid program. A lot of people are interested after my talks. Well, how do you do that with a hybrid program? That's a great idea. So it's about teaching them how to do that, because the feedback that I get from my clients, that they log in and they have everything in one place and they always have something they can work on. They always have something positive they can watch. They love that. So I get really great feedback, and that's what I work on. It's not about what I think is the right thing. It's what my clients tell me, what's amazing and what they love about working with me, and maybe what's different than with the other people that I've worked with. And that's what I take on board, and that's what I then, keep working on it, I guess.
Beautiful. Now, Connie, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, I'm so grateful that I've been on this podcast. I hope people get inspired by it. I hope people are interested in the book. I'd love for people to read that book and share it on and review it and give me their feedback. Because again, on feedback, I can get better and I can serve my clients and other hypnotherapists better.
Beautiful. Scott, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yes, Connie, it's been wonderful traveling down your magical psyche highway. We've certainly enjoyed traveling down yours. And for our viewers out there, we're so glad that you're here too. We're grateful that you've come. Please come back next week. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, just give us the thumbs down. We don't care. We're just glad you're here. We hope you come back, and we'll see you next week. Remember to friend, share, and all that good stuff. Follow us. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.